Hello guys, in today's video I'm going to show you how to build or convert a C# class into an XML object, and later on you can customize it. So in .NET we know that we can build an XML object using the XML document, and it uses the DOM library to create each XML element and in the hierarchy itself. But I'm going to show you another way of creating an XML. That is, you have a C# class, so you have the whole class hierarchy, and you can use an XML serializer to just convert that C# class into an XML object very easily. And also you can do some customization on that XML as well. So let's start with an example. So if you see, I have this employee class, and I have some dummy employee created. So it has some ID, first name, last name, some basic information, and then we have this address. An employee can have many addresses. It has like ID element, like employee ID and all those address information. So now as I said, I have some dummy employees in my database. I can run it and just I can show the list of employees that I have. So if I run it, you can see if I log in to my dummy app, there's a link called view employees, which basically go and call a backend API to get all the employees, and it just shows here. So it has the employees information and their addresses. Now, what if you want to get this whole employee list in an XML object? That's what I'm going to show you how you can do that. So if you see in my backend code of this employee page, there is one function called serialize to XML. So what it does is basically when it serializes those employees into an XML. Now, the first thing that I have done here, because I have this list of employees here. Now, every XML, there is a root element, and the root element cannot be a list. It has to be a class. So I have to put this list of employees into a class which can be a root element. So what I've done is I've created an employee list XML where I have this list of employees and an employee DTO list object. So as part of this serialized XML, I just create an instance of employee list and just initialize it with the list of employees that I have. And then I'm just calling this, creating an instance of XML Serializer, where I'm saying that, okay, it will be a serializing and the type of XML list. So, and then we just added some settings for the serializer. For example, if you want the XML to be indent, so I just treat it true. So it will indent the XML, and it will omit XML declaration, which is false. So like in the XML, there is a very first line, it has the declaration of the XML with the version number and everything. So do you want to omit that line? If you put it true, then it will just omit it. The new line on attributes. So like when you have each attribute, when you declare the attribute or start the attribute node, do you want a new line when you put the other information? I'll show you what I mean by that. And then finally, we create an XML writer where you'll write, and then the string writer as well, where we write that whole XML object in XML into a string. And then finally, we just do the serialize where we create the XML writer using that settings. And then finally, we serialize it into the XML writer. And the wrapper is that this are my employee list. And finally, we do a string it to show it. So if I run this now, so if you go to the output, you see I have a button called save as XML. So when I call that, it basically call this to toggle XML view. So if I click on it, see it has converted to an XML. Now, I want to notice something here. You see the root. This is what I was saying, that that's the initial line of the XML, and then that you can control it through the settings. So if you go here and if you just put the settings to be false, and I just restart, if I just log in, view employees, see the whole XML. Oh, okay. I did a wrong setting. I said intent to be false. I didn't mean that. I want the intent to be true, but I want to omit the XML declaration. So if I omit this, save it, stop and start my project, and log in. See, I still have the same output, but I don't have the declaration. And the other thing that I was saying is new line on attributes. What I mean is that it sets to false. So which means you see that when we start an attribute, that's the name of the attribute, and then we have some other information. Now, do we want a new line after this so that the attribute will be shown in one line, then the next line will be these other parameters? Now, if you set it to true and just stop, start, see here is the attribute for each parameter is shown in a separate line. So this is what you can control through that settings. Now, I want to notice some other things here. So if you see, the root element is called employee list XML, and then you have employees, and then we have each employee DTO. Now these names, where are this coming from? So basically this root element name, it is picking up the name of the class, and then because it has a list of employees, that's why it's created another root called employees, and then within employees it has each employee, and the name of they picked up is the name of the class employee DTO. Now you might not like this, you might not want to say employee list XML because your class name can be anything, and we want to name it your class. You don't want to show your class name to the output. Rather, the proper way I want to say is like, okay, I want to call this only employees. So what you can do is very simple, just stop it, and then also I don't want new line on attributes, and I also want to include the declaration of XML. So here you just need to create an attribute called XML root, and you just have to name it whatever you want to name it. So I call it employees. Now here, if you see that it shows employees, right, as within the root, and then it calls this one employee DTO, the name of the class, at each of the name of the node is employee DTO for each employee, which I don't want to show because employee DTO doesn't make any sense. So what I want to say is XML array item to be employee. Now if I do this and run, Now see, I have these employees root, then I have employees, and then I have each employee. Now see one more thing. We have employees already, and then we have another employees, which is redundant, and we don't want that. We want directly within employees under the root element, we want each employee. So how do you do that? So in that case, we just, instead of saying it XML array item, we just call it, this one is XML element. So the XML element will just skip the parent employee employees and start like each of these employee within this list as an XML element, and then it start from there. So it'll skip that parent node. So now if I run it, it's opening the browser to my other window. That's why I have to drag it every time. So there you go. We have the employees, and directly after that we started the employee. This looks much better. Okay, another thing, and I'll show you. See the same thing. I have addresses and then address DTO, right? The same thing. I don't want addresses under employee. I just want starting all the address one by one. You can just do that. If you go here, go inside the employee, and if you in the list, if you just declare it as XML element and then name it as address, then it should show that. Other thing I want to change is when I see the address, because if I run this now, and I'll show you one thing here. So see, within address we have the ID and then employee ID, address type ID. Now this might not mean anything to the user. What are these IDs? And I don't want to show that or output it. So any property within a class, if you don't want to show in the show in the XML, or maybe this address type name, because I might just want to say only address type, not the this type name. So how do you do that? So it's very simple. With an address, any property that you don't want to show, just put an attribute called XML ignore. And once you ignore this, they will be ignored in the XML output. And also this one, I don't want to call it employee type name. Like I just want to say only employee type. So XML element address type. Sorry, not employee type, address type. It has to be within the quote, double quotes. There you go. So now if I restart it, so again it opened up the browser in my other window, so I have to drag it over here, log in. See, much more cleaner. Now I have the address and I don't have all those IDs, and I now call it address type, and that's it. It's cleaner. So this way you can easily declare your class, and you build your class structure, and then later on you can just easily convert it into an XML without going into building the XML node by node separately. It's very easy, very helpful tool when you are coding and then you want some XML output, especially when you sometimes you are you have a third-party integration where you are sending some payload to the third party and they want the payload to be XML. You don't have to build the XML as long as you have the class declared and defined in your project, and then you're building the class based on your data, and then finally you can just serialize it to an XML and send it over. So I hope this will be helpful for you guys. If you have any question, you can leave a comment, and also I'll put a link to this repository so that you can download and play around with it. I'll put the link in the description. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.